Hey there, welcome to the garden. We've got a nice sunny day out here. We're getting into all the best warm summer weather, and the tomatoes are growing like crazy. It's been just a couple days since I showed you this tomato last, and I'm getting ready to go ahead and wrap it back around the arch trellis, and I want to show you how I'm basically going to be attaching the tomato to the trellis from now on. It is growing just so quickly. So I don't do a ton of pruning of tomatoes, and the nice thing about the arch trellis is what I do here, I'm just going to put it under the rung, and I'm just going to start wrapping it around the trellis basically, and so it'll just start working its way up and go all the way up to the top of the trellis, probably by, oh my gosh, I don't know, maybe midsummer. I think that last year my tomatoes were going around the trellis by oh my gosh, I want to say end of July. They grow so quickly. It's just incredible. And they lasted pretty well on this trellis As you can see, the arch trellis gets a little bit of shade. It's about noon right now, and part of it gets a little bit of shade, which, you know, typically we would think of maybe as a bad thing for tomatoes, but because it gets so much afternoon sun, I think that actually having a little bit of shade helps the tomatoes. I found that the tomatoes that I had in this kind of part shade situation over the trellis last year handled the heat really well, and they didn't have as many issues like dropping flowers. After a certain temperature, I think it's somewhere around 90 degrees Fahrenheit, tomatoes drop their petals and they won't produce fruit. And I found that because they had a little bit of shade, I think it just kept them a little cooler, and we ended up getting tomatoes for a lot longer. I also had the Juliet tomatoes on the trellis, which I have on the trellis again this year, and the Juliet tomatoes were such good tomatoes for the heat. I've heard other people talking about how Juliet tomatoes did really well for them with hotter temperatures and handled that and kept producing. So maybe it's a little bit of the variety, maybe it's the location. We've got some other kinds of tomatoes, some sun golds and a few other different kinds on the trellis this year. So we will kind of put that to the test a little bit. But I was excited to come out here the other night and realize it was time to push them under the next little rung because they're just growing so quickly. Oh, it's fun to watch. I've got the first flowers setting on the micro tomatoes, and I think I see a few little flower sets on the arch trellis. So you can see in there the start of a few flowers. So that is going to mean tomatoes. And what I will come out and do is just kind of come out and shake the trellis a little bit once the tomatoes start blooming, because of course tomatoes produce, they're wind pollinated, so you want to get a little bit of a jiggle. But that is really, really fun to see. And you know, I'll give you a whole update on the tomatoes, because the tomatoes along the fence are starting to pick up and do really well too. I think they're starting to get to the size where you can see they're starting to get some sun. They get great morning sun, a big block of morning sun, and then once we get here to noon, they start to kind of get less sun, but you can see they're getting tall enough that they're reaching a little bit of the sun, and if they can keep doing that, then they'll get basically full sun all day. So I am kind of curious to see how this goes. And these are all of my big beefsteak tomatoes, so I put mostly different kinds of cherry tomatoes and saladette tomatoes on the trellis, and then we got our big beefsteak tomatoes here. So I think they're looking healthier and healthier, and again, they're gonna get a little bit of shade, so we'll see if maybe that helps them when we get into the, more heat of the summer and they start producing. Hopefully they'll produce a little bit longer. Fingers crossed. We'll just see how that works. I'm looking over here. We've got the squash is getting big. I'm actually going to go ahead and take this leaf out. I do a little bit of pruning of leaves on the squash, and I'm trying to just kind of keep everything contained around here so that my border of Gomfrina continues to look good. This is so pretty. This is the Truffula Pink Gomfrida. It makes a really good cut flower. So this is on my list to cut some at the end of the week for my place settings that I'm doing and table decorations, but looks really good for right now. Yeah. The garden is in just such a good place. Another fun thing that I saw was the first bud over here on my Heliopsis. So the container perennials continue to do well, and this Heliopsis is getting nice and tall. I think it's about I don't know, just over 3 feet, and starting to put on some buds. You can enjoy some perennials even if you have a container garden. This is in just like, I don't know what size pot that is, maybe 12-inch across. It does dry out a lot during the day. I have to really keep on top of watering it because I think the root system is taking up this whole pot. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep it in here for another year, but for right now we're starting to get blooms. And that's super exciting. And my other tomatoes that I have in the 1-gallon grow bags are looking nice. Some flower set on these. These are all like bush style, determinate style tomatoes. So hopefully they'll be able to grow in here for a long time. I should come out, I need to remember to do this, I should grab some, actually maybe I'll do that right now. I should grab some stakes just to start supporting these. Once I find that once tomato plants get to about this tall, like, I don't know, what is this, 1.5 feet, they start to need a little bit support, even if they are technically like determinate tomato. Like technically they're not going to get 12 feet tall or anything. They still just need a little bit of support or they start falling over. So let me go grab some bamboo stakes. So I don't have any twine out here with me, so I should grab some twine just to tie them to the support. But you can just stick like a stake in next to the tomato, and it just helps to keep everything supported. You can see how much faster the tomato is growing than even my eggplants that I've got here, and I've got like a little pepper, and they're all growing so much slower. The tomatoes are just taking off. You can even kind of wrap the tomato, like wrap it around the stake, and that'll just keep everything upright and tidy. The last thing that I need to do today is handle this grow bag situation. So I got this grow bag here. It's got some, actually this is chocolate cosmos, and then a few full-size peppers, and I stuck some little cucumbers in here because, this is what happens. I just start adding things. But unfortunately, I think it's getting shaded by my, this is phlox. This is a perennial phlox. And then I've also got some, I think this is blackjack, or yeah, I think this is blackjack. This is a black-eyed Susan. Took me a second. And they're starting to cast a bit of shade because we get a lot of afternoon sun on this area. And I just think the peppers aren't growing super well because of that. So I may go ahead and move. I'm loving kind of the way this area looks, but ultimately I really need the peppers. I want the peppers to do well. So I may go ahead and move this phlox over here because it's going to be tall enough that it can still get sun behind this container. And I might have to move, well, let's see, I might have to move the black-eyed Susan back. I think I might have to do some rearranging, which I kind of don't want to do, but I feel like I got to make sure that everything is getting, enough sun. And I do want these peppers to produce. I know that the phlox will do okay because it can compete height-wise over on this side. So, all right, let's do a little pot rearranging. Again, I didn't really want to move my containers around. At the beginning of the year, I thought I was going to keep all my containers in the same place and just let them, basically stay in the same spot for the whole season and enjoy that look. But things grow in different ways, and sometimes, especially with like the perennials and containers, I wasn't quite sure what they were going to do, how they were going to look in the containers. And so basically, I've come into a situation where this guy's not getting enough sun. So now we've got to do some rearranging. So I guess we'll just go ahead and change things up. Here is the new look. So we've got the grow bag over here. And I kept, this is actually going to be a really pretty Sunfinity sunflower. Hopefully the cosmos will get more sun. I moved one of the taller tomatoes back there and kind of just tried to use the different heights. And then over here, I moved the black-eyed Susan back because that's so tall. I wanted to leave plenty of room around this cottage container because I love the look of this container so much, and I kind of for a second had it sort of packed in there with other things, and I didn't like that. I want it to be able to kind of stand alone. I want to be able to really see the beauty of this container because it's so gorgeous, and I really, really like it. So I left that out. I moved the peanuts over here, which honestly, something has been eating. I don't think I'm going to be able to grow peanuts. I think this is going to be a fail for me. So clearly this, you know, is not keeping anything off of them. So I don't know, I'm gonna like, I guess, let those plants grow up as much as I can, but I might just need to put like some sort of shade plant over in this container and just leave it at that, because I don't think peanuts are gonna grow in my garden, which I should have known. I have so many chipmunks and squirrels. My biggest garden pests are chipmunks and squirrels. So how I thought I was gonna grow peanuts, I mean, that's just like, that might be tempting fate a little bit too much. Sometimes you've got to work with your space a little bit. I like to push the limits, I like to push the boundaries, but that was too much. Okay, so I'm gonna have to figure out something else with the peanuts. But then I also moved a couple of the other edibles over into this space as well. So I actually ended up moving one of the tomatoes over here, and I stuck a pepper and one of the eggplants. And now that I've mixed all the peppers and eggplants up, I have no idea what variety those are, and I didn't label them. And so this will be a fun mystery, but they fill up this space nicely, and I'll just keep adjusting it as I go. And the petunias, which now I desperately need to prune, but we are saving that. As I said in one of my other videos, I'm saving that for this weekend so I can use some of them in arrangements, and then we'll prune this back fairly hard and let it kind of take a better shape, because right now it was just growing kind of underneath everything, but it will come back into a better shape if I do a little bit of strategic pruning on it. So we'll do that, kind of help that. Oh my gosh, look at this. Ranunculus is so, I mean, it's just stunning. So gorgeous. It has grown kind of sideways too because of the other plants. So hopefully I freed up, you know, a little bit of room for some of these things to kind of grow, and I think it looks nice. And it's going to be fun to have the edibles in there with the flowers as well. And this corner still looks really good. Of course, these petunias are just the show. They are so incredible. Oh my gosh, they're so happy this year. It's wonderful to see. And looks like I need to water. See, the Heliopsis is already kind of drooping. I should water this before I go inside. I did water this morning, but 'tis the season now of extra watering, and it is hard with some of these big plants in containers because they just need a ton of water. We're early in the season for this plant to be needing this much water, so we may have to revisit that as the season goes on. It may just be too small a pot. Who knows, maybe I'll end up planting it out in the landscape, but we'll see. But as always, thank you so much for hanging out. It is Thursday, so we've just got a few more days of this garden week. I'll keep you posted on what I'm doing out in the garden. Just always having fun. It's definitely, this is one of my happy places, and I love it so much. So thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.